National Sunday Law, Appendix 5, War with the Saints. Under these bloody maxims, those persecutions were carried on from the 11th and 12th centuries almost to the present day, written in 1845, which stand out on the page of history. After the signal of open martyrdom had been given in the canons of Orleans, these followed the extirpation of the Albigenses under the form of a crusade, the establishment of the Inquisition, the cruel attempts to extinguish the Waldenses, the martyrdom of the Lollards, the cruel wars to exterminate the Bohemians, the burning of Huss and Jerome, and multitudes of other confessors, the extinction by fire and sword of the Reformation in Spain and Italy, by fraud and open persecution in Poland, and the massacre of Bartholomew, besides the slow and secret murders of the Holy Tribunal of the Inquisition. T. R. Burks, M.A., The First Two Visions of Daniel, London, 1845, pages 258 and 259. The number of the victims of the Inquisition in Spain is given in the History of the Inquisition in Spain by Llorente, former Secretary of the Inquisition, pages 206 to 208. This authority acknowledged that more than 300,000 suffered persecution in Spain alone, of whom 31,912 died in the flames. Millions more were slain for their faith throughout Europe. Printed in Bible Readings for the Home, Washington, Review and Herald Publishing Association, 1942, page 221. The Church has persecuted. Only a tyro in church history will deny that 150 years after Constantine, the Donatists were persecuted and sometimes put to death. Protestants were persecuted in France and Spain with the full approval of the church authorities. When she thinks it good to use physical force, she will use it. The Western Watchman, Roman Catholic of St. Louis. Appendix 6, Edict against the Waldenses. A considerable portion of the text of the papal bull issued by Pope Innocent VIII in 1487 against the Waldenses, the original of which is in the library of the University of Cambridge, is given in an English translation in John Dowling's History of Romanism, the 1871 edition, Book 6, Chapter 5, Section 62. Taken from Cosmic Conflict, Washington, Review and Herald Publishing Association, 1982, page 602. Appendix 7, Images. The Second Council of Nicaea, AD 787, was called to establish image worship in the Church. This council is recorded in Ecclesiastical Annals by Baronius, Volume 9, pages 391 to 407, Antwerp, 1612, and Charles J. Hefele, A History of the Councils of the Church from the Original Documents, Book 18, Chapter 1, Sections 332, 333, Chapter 2, Sections 345 to 352, T. and T. Clark Edition, 1896, Volume 5, pages 260 to 304 and 342 to 372. J. Mendham, in the Seventh General Council, the Second of Nicaea, Introduction, pages III to VI, says, the worship of images was one of those corruptions of Christianity which crept into the church stealthily and almost without notice or observation. This corruption did not, like other heresies, develop itself at once, for in that case it would not have met with decided censure and rebuke. Images were first introduced into churches, not to be worshipped, but either in place of books to give instruction to those who could not read, or to excite devotion in the minds of others. But it was found that images brought into the churches darkened rather than enlightened the minds of the ignorant, degraded rather than exalted the devotion of the worshipper. Appendix 8, Change of God's Law. Although the Ten Commandments are found in the Roman Catholic versions of the Scriptures, yet the faithful are instructed from the catechisms of the Church, and not from the Bible. As it appears in the catechisms, the law of God has been changed and virtually reenacted by the papacy. The second commandment, which forbids the making of and bowing down to images, is omitted in Catholic catechisms and the 10th, which forbids coveting, is divided into two. Bible Readings for the Home, Washington, Review and Herald Publishing Association, 1942, page 221. On the opposite page is God's law as given by himself and as changed by man. The Ten Commandments as given by Jehovah. 1. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. 2. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. 3. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. The fourth commandment. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. 5. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. 6. Thou shalt not kill. 7. Thou shalt not commit adultery. 8. Thou shalt not steal. 9. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. 10. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. This is taken from Exodus 20, verses 3 to 17. The Ten Commandments as changed by man. 1. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. 2. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. 3. Remember that thou keep holy the Sabbath day. 4. Honor thy father and thy mother. 5. Thou shalt not kill. 6. Thou shalt not commit adultery. 7. Thou shalt not steal. 8. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. 9. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. 10. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Butler's Catechism, page 28. Appendix 9. The First Sunday Law. The earliest recognition of the observance of Sunday as a legal duty is a constitution of Constantine in 321 AD, enacting that all courts of justice, inhabitants of towns and workshops, were to be at rest on Sunday. Venerabile die solis, with an exception in favor of those engaged in agricultural labor. Encyclopedia Britannica, 9th edition, article, Sunday. The Latin original is in the Codes Justiniani, Codes of Justinian, Lib. 3, Title 12, Lex 3. The law is given in Latin and in English in Philip Schaff's History of the Christian Church, Volume 3, 3D period, Chapter 7, Section 75, page 380, footnote 1. And in Albert Henry Newman's A Manual of Church History, Philadelphia, the American Baptist Publication Society, 1933, Rev. ed., Volume 1, pages 305 to 307. And in Leroy E. Froome, The Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers, Washington, D.C., Review and Herald Publishing Association, 1950, Volume 1, pages 376 to 381. Appendix 10. First Day Bible Texts. Millions of conscientious Christians attend church every Sunday, the first day of the week. They do so believing that somewhere, somehow, someone changed the day of worship. Either that, or they aren't aware that God set aside the seventh day, not the first day of the week, as his holy day. It is true, a change has been made. But by whom? We've discovered that God made the Sabbath during the first week of Earth's history. He set it aside as a weekly appointment between man and himself, as a blessing, a refreshment, a date between two lovers, so to speak, God and man. If God changed his mind about his special appointment day with us, wouldn't he have recorded so momentous an adjustment in the Bible? We've already seen that the beast power claims to have made the change, but what does the Bible say about it? There are 8 texts in the New Testament that mention the first day of the week. Look at them carefully. Matthew 28 verse 1, Mark 16 verses 1 and 2, Mark 16 verse 9, Luke 24 verse 1, John 20 verse 1, John 20 verse 19, Acts 20 verses 7 and 8, and 1 Corinthians 16 verses 1 and 2. The first 5 texts simply state that the woman came to the sepulchre early on the resurrection morning and that Jesus rose from the dead. Now look up John 20 verse 19 in your Bible. It tells us that Jesus appeared to the disciples later on the resurrection day. It says that the reason they were assembled was for fear of the Jews. They were scared. No telling when the Jews might grab them and treat them to the same fate as their master. They were hiding. They had seen their beloved master die on Friday. They returned and prepared spices and ointments and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. Luke 23 verse 56. And now they're hiding with the door shut for fear of the Jews. John 20 verse 19. There's no mention of a change of God's holy law. The 7th text is Acts 20 verses 7 and 8. It says, "And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. And there were many lights in the upper chamber, where they were gathered together." This was a night meeting, the dark part of the first day of the week. In Bible reckoning, the dark part of the day comes before the light part. Genesis 1 verse 5. "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day." The dark part comes first. The Bible reckons the day from sunset to sunset. The 7th day begins on sunset Friday evening. The first day of the week begins sunset Saturday evening. Paul is together with his friends on the dark part of the first day of the week, Saturday night. This is a farewell get-together. He preached until midnight when poor Eutychus falls out of the window. Acts 20 verse 9. You can imagine how relieved they were when it was found that God spared his life. Verse 11 says that they talked till the break of day, and then Paul departed. Verse 13 shows that Paul spent that Sunday morning traveling to Assos. There's nothing here either concerning a change of the Sabbath. The New English Bible translates this text like this. "On the Saturday night, in our assembly for the breaking of bread, Paul, who was to leave the next day, addressed them, and went on speaking until midnight." Acts 20 verse 7. The last text mentions the first day of the week in 1 Corinthians 16 verses 1 and 2. It says, "Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even do so ye. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come." Verse 3 tells that he will bring the offering to Jerusalem. As he had done in Galatia, so Paul also requests of those in Corinth to have a collection all ready when he would come to take it to the poor saints in Jerusalem. There's nothing in the text about a church service, but each person is to lay by him in store. The first of the week was the best time for the people to set some money aside because later in the week it would be spent. That's true today as well. Paul requested this so that there'll be no gatherings when I come. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2. At this time, the Christians are suffering hardship in Jerusalem, and Paul is making his rounds to the churches, taking up a collection for them. We should be that thoughtful today. There's nothing in this text either about a change of God's Sabbath to Sunday. Concerning worship, what was Paul's custom? Here it is. "And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures. Acts 17 verse 2. Jesus, as our example, also had the custom of attending church on Saturday, the seventh day, as we see in Luke 4 verse 16. The great time prophecies of the Bible have all been fulfilled on schedule. Thus the accuracy and dependability of God's Word are firmly established. Appendix 11. The Ceremonial Law and the Two Covenants. The distinction between the moral law of God, the Ten Commandments, and the ceremonial law is plain. Look carefully at the differences in the two. The one with animal sacrifices was nailed to the cross. The other will stand forever. 1. The Ten Commandments is called the royal law, James 2 verse 8, while the ceremonial law is called the law contained in ordinances, Ephesians 2 verse 15. 2. The Ten Commandments was spoken by God, Deuteronomy 4 verses 12 and 13, while the ceremonial law was spoken by Moses, Leviticus 1 verses 1 to 3. 3. The Ten Commandments was written with the finger of God, Exodus 31 verse 18, while the ceremonial law was written by Moses in a book, 2 Chronicles 35 verse 12. 4. The Ten Commandments was placed in the ark, Exodus 40 verse 20 and Hebrews 9 verse 4, while the ceremonial law was placed in the side of the ark, Deuteronomy 31 verses 24 to 26. 5. The Ten Commandments will stand forever and ever, Psalm 111 verses 7 and 8, while the ceremonial law was nailed to the cross, Colossians 2 verse 14. 6. The Ten Commandments was not destroyed by Christ, Matthew 5 verses 17 and 18, while the ceremonial law was abolished by Christ, Ephesians 2 verse 15. The two great commandments are, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And the second great commandment is, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. God's 10 commandments are hanging on these two. The first 4 commandments on the first table tell us how to love God with all our heart. Have no other gods, not worship images, not take God's name in vain, and remember his Sabbath day to keep it holy. And the last 6 on the second table deal with loving our neighbor as ourselves. To honor our parents, not kill, not commit adultery, not steal, not lie, not covet. The Old and New Covenants. The Old Covenant was ratified by the blood of animals and based upon the promises of the people that they would keep God's law. Exodus 24 verses 5 to 8 and Hebrews 9 verses 19 and 20. The New Covenant, on the other hand, is based on God's promise to write his moral law of 10 commandments in our hearts, and it was ratified with the blood of Christ. Hebrews 8 verse 10 and Jeremiah 31 verses 33 and 34. Hebrews 8 verse 10 says, For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their minds, and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people.